And we begin with our top stories. The health of a 16-month-old baby, Grace Iyore, is fast deteriorating 1 month after she returns from India, but without proper treatment as earlier promised by the government of Cameroon. And at least 1.4 million children in crisis-affected zones in Cameroon have been deprived of quality education. This is a revelation from the United Nations Office for Commission for Humanitarian Action, UN OCHA. And the minister delegate at the presidency in charge of defense, Joseph Betiasumo, has urged different unit of forces, law and order, to intensify security measures as hitch-free as end of year festivities draw closer. Those are major stories. Details right ahead. Good evening once more. The health of a 16-month-old baby, Grace Iyore, is fast deteriorating barely 1 month after she returned from India with her parents, but without a proper treatment as earlier promised by the government of Cameroon. Her parents are in tears while government remains silent on her case. Human rights lawyer Barrister Tamfo Richard says he's pushing government to react and has requested for proper investigation. More in the following story. Despite multiple calls to save the life of this baby, the government is still keeping an impressive silence.
It is so painful to let everyone know today that we haven't heard anything from the government of Cameroon since we returned from India.
Tears won't stop rolling down her cheeks as she sees her 16-month-old baby fast depreciating by the day. It is almost a month after Bonki Ivoline returned from India, where she was evacuated by the government of Cameroon for proper treatment after a vaccine administered on the baby at the Bonne Hospital in Kribi got her paralyzed and blind. While in India, she disclosed the were abandoned by government as no proper treatment was given to the baby.
While we were there in India, the doctors there conducted a series of tests on her. And then they placed her on good medications and ordered for physiotherapy to start on the baby immediately. While the physiotherapy was going on, we realized that her spinal cord that was bent was straight, and her hearing that was so impossible. We realized that she could hear sounds, and when you're talking around her, you will see her moving. Ever since we returned back to Cameroon, her condition is not improving at all.
Human rights lawyer Barrister Tamfo Richard has been contacted by the parents to push for the case.
They waited for money to follow for the medical to take care of the medical bills of the child. It was not reaching India, and they were forced to come back to Cameroon. So as we speak, nothing is being said about the state of the child. The child is abandoned to the family. The child has lost all its senses. The child cannot move its arm. The child only breathes as we speak. So
the Minister of Public Health, through this interview, seems conscious of the situation.
L'enfant a été évacué en Inde, où le programme élargi de vaccination, parce que nous avons fait une décision au niveau du Conseil national de la santé, qui a été envoyée pour paiement au niveau du ministère des Finances.
A budget of 9,800,000 was voted or budgeted for the treatment for the follow-up of this child. This money has never reached the family.
He says there are rare cases, but the government would continue to press for the child to regain back her health.
Avec l'aide de la famille, à pouvoir faire tout ce qui est faisable.
But how is that possible when the child's treatment has stopped?
She's going back. She's going back to the terrible situation that she was before we left.
Parents see something must be done and fast to save the child. And the minister delegate at the presidency of the Republic in charge of defense, Joseph Betiasomo, has urged different units of forces of law and order to intensify security measures to ensure a hitch-free end-of-year festivities. This was at the center of a security meeting this Monday in the nation's political capital. On the Malta reporter, Haisincha.
The end-of-year festivities are at the corner, and the persistence in security situations in other parts of the country remains a major concern, as underlined in this security meeting by the Minister Delegate at the Presidency in charge of Defense, Joseph Betiasomo.
Particularly at a time when the end of year and New Year festivities are on the horizon, and the socio-economic concerns of the people. Internally, our compatriots will also have to live through this end-of-year period in a security context marked by pockets of security concerns, particularly in the far north, northwest, and southwest regions.
And here, this November 13 in Yaoundé, to seek measures for a hitch-free end-of-year celebrations, is the Secretary of State in charge of the National Gendarmerie, Galaxy Toga, the Delegate General for National Security, Martin Bargangele, and other military commanders.
4 million children in crisis-affected zones in Cameroon have been deprived of quality education. This is a revelation from the United Nations Office for the Commission for Humanitarian Action, UN OCHA. Gladys Ambodibank sought to know from experts the adverse effects of such a situation and the possible solutions to reverse the trend. She tells us more in the following story.
Amongst the 1.4 million children said to be deprived of safe and quality education in crisis zones in Cameroon, at least 600,000 of them are reportedly from the northwest and southwest regions that have been experiencing socio-political unrest for 7 years. There are fears these children could be harmed for life by growing up in these extremely insecure and challenging situations.
When these children don't get the right education now, they'll not be able to take advantage of the future opportunities, and it will make it difficult for them to break out of the chain of poverty. We also have social impact, increased crime wave, increased inequality in the society, and social unrest is definitely a major impact that will come as a result of this constant deprivation of quality education to children in these communities.
La croissance de l'insécurité.
There will be high rate of insecurity with these children as the main actors, because the young people regularly consume hard drugs, and these will lead to future violence. Because of what they experience daily, they will be able to easily kill a human being without remorse.
Pourront facilement tuer un être humain.
According to the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Action, attacks from the Islamic sect Boko Haram has also forced hundreds of children out of school. And what can be done to save these children from lifelong psychological effects?
The most important way of solving this is to start with actual conflict resolution and peace-building strategies. If the underlying factors of the existing conflicts are actually addressed and solved, education could go back to normal and these children can get out of what they are currently facing. We also need actual humanitarian aids that can come in to actually provide the right help which can actually help these children to have their access to quality education.
It will be important to take away the children from the crisis zone for those who can and shelter them in more safer areas, while others who cannot have the opportunity to go to school could learn a trade. The United Nations Agency has also revealed that there have been violent attacks on schools in these affected regions, and more than 2,000 of these schools have remained closed this academic year.
And we now talk politics. The avalanche of political parties in Cameroon have come on the critics. Kejan Henry Atembe went finding out the reasons. His story.
Learning and speaking Russian has now been made easy for Cameroonians who wish to. This after the inauguration of the Russian Linguistic Center at the University of DOUALA. The Russian hierarchy, President Putin, asked us to launch more cooperation between Russian and African universities, the reason why we are in Cameroon. The inauguration ceremony saw the approval of many projects that come within the framework of boosting university education.
Vice Rector of our university in scientific work, we signed some contracts for mutual work, and we hope we will have very, very successful work in future.
With this, the Russian delegation see they have high expectations for this cooperation.
Our delegation expects very successful mutual work in research and cultural development between our countries.
It should be noted the cooperation which masterminded the construction of the center eventually made it to be equipped with high-tech learning equipments for the students.
That was rather a university report at the University of DOUALA today, where the Russian Linguistic Center was inaugurated in the presence of Cameroonian and Russian officials in the education sector. Report by Fru William. And the avalanche of political parties have come under critics in Cameroon. Kejan Henry Atembe went finding out his story.
Cameroon officially counts 319 political parties as of November 10, 2023, with 40 new political parties recently authorized by the Ministry of Territorial Administration. Critics of the regime hold that this is a smart way by the regime to consolidate power by creating satellite parties of the ruling CPDM at the eve of 3 major electoral showdowns.
I just think that it's high time Cameroonians begin to acknowledge the patterns. If this is already the eve of the 2025 election, we're about a year out, the ruling party is just positioning itself for the next upcoming election to make sure that it does have a successful landslide victory. But when you have this type of fragmentation, you see that actually the December 1990 law is working to the advantage of the ruling party system.
The rate at which political parties are mushrooming in Cameroon has been questioned across the board.
The timing can at least be seen as parties coming out for those elections. And people can believe that these parties are not there really to animate the political arena, but maybe they are there just for those elections.
In a country with about 29 million citizens, many are wondering where more than 300 political parties will source for followers, a majority of whom are living far below the poverty line. Others are quick to note that the avalanche of political parties will be difficult for any party to come out with a clear-cut majority in any election. This would mean the legitimacy of any winner will be questioned.
And in a heartwarming tale of determination, resilience, and talent, a teenager orphan has defied all odds and emerged as a master craftsman despite a staggering debut. Ismail has managed to turn his passion for art into a thriving career, inspiring others with his extraordinary talents. More on the story with our student journalist on internship, Kizi Kiga.
Muncharu Ismail lost both parents when he was a teen. Raised through the hard way, he had to fend for himself, and so he picked up to craft work. Born in Fumban, reputed as the city of arts and craft, he was able to fit himself amongst the masters, producing soul-touching art that has gained national and international recognition. This idea came to realization when the head of state spoke about living together and long-standing experience. He inspired me to do this, and we have been working now for 4 years. Ismail, passion for craft is rooted from his family circle, taken from his late father. As an experienced craftsman, his works are conspicuous. His father died since 2010, and Ismail has taken after him. His father was a craftsman and an artist. As an orphan, he did not have the opportunity to go to school. Muncharu Ismail invites the young people from the Noon Division and even those from Cameroon in general to be hardworking and united. My wish is to present this craft to everyone, this experience, this living together in unity. We plead on the government authorities to encourage us in one way or the other. We are reminded that the vast majority of young people in this city essentially make a living from this profession.
And the first African Rural Women's Fair has opened this day in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé. These women from several African countries and the 10 regions of Cameroon will be exchanging experience, sharing know-how, and promoting a Made in Cameroon. Beatrice Gamo completes our story.
Marie-Beatrice know-how in agricultural production, cocoyam, plantain, potatoes, cassava. From Nanga Eboko, what she is showcasing here at the First African Rural Women Fair underway at the esplanade of the Multipurpose Sports Complex. Like her, Angel from the Central African Republic has on display medicinal plants and oil.
Les plantains là-bas, les sacs de macabo, le couscous en boule, les maniocs, les ignames par terre, l'huile de sésame. Les sésames, l'huile de karité, les chenilles.
Rural women from several African countries and the 10 regions of Cameroon promoting the Made in Africa. The rendezvous is to honor and encourage these frontline local food security heroes.
We are here on a concept of the free trade zone for Africa, which will enable women living in rural areas to get out of poverty, to see their wealth, to earn money, to see their hard work having a result and make them meet their needs. So
this initiative by the Ministry of Women's Empowerment and Family under the patronage of Cameroon's First Ladies under the theme Rural Women, Food Assets of Africa, capitalizing on their know-how to make them better producers of wealth. Same challenges and difficulties cuts across, such as lack of roads to get goods out of the farm, means to transform local produce, imports, finances, and technical support. 1 week to expand opportunities, access, and benefits.
Princes and princesses are committed to revive what they call the rural protocol. They met over the weekend in the nation's Cameroon's economic hub, DOUALA, for the annual General Assembly coming from the 10 regions of Cameroon. Cajun Henry Ateme was part of that ceremony. His story.
Drawn from the different chiefdoms that make up the Confundum, the princes and princesses sojourn in DOUALA on November 11, 2023 to brainstorm on the future of their kingdom. Amongst the major issues discussed is sustainable peace and development, a theme carefully crafted within the prevailing socio-economic and political context to foster cohesion amongst the children.
Royalty and dignity without giving enough space for peace, enough space for cultural revival, those aspects of the culture that must not die. If we don't revive them and allow them die, very soon you have no culture. And a people with no culture is a people to be pitied.
Beyond the ordinary, the prince and princesses had to revive what they call royal protocol, better put, palace protocol.
The fund exists to take care of the people. In fact, the fund is a servant of his people. Even though time and again they look at him as somebody who will be very difficult to approach, it is because the palace protocol, time and again, people don't understand it. And that's why we had an excerpt just to teach people how to approach their paramount fun.
The gathering was equally an opportunity for the princes and princesses to scoop through the shrines in order to avoid protracting chieftaincy problems, most of which usually occur with the transition of the spiritual guide. With royalty and dignity being the prime in the confundum, the princes and princesses ate from the same bowl, drank from the same cup, and danced the same symphonies. The news on this umpteenth royal conclave will be disseminated across the globe where the kith and kin of the confundum have settled.
And thank you so much, Kejan Henry Tembe, for that story. And that brings us to the end of this edition of the Primetime Newscast in the English language on Canal International. But coming up next is the brief with Lil Piaget. As for me, I'll be back same time tomorrow. Good night.